Alex, I heard that you're feeling terrific. You want to host the show, and you mostly just want to talk the entire time.
Uh,
What was that? Is this your new rhyming scheme for writing reviews? Like you're taking a cue from Child of Light? You're
Hi.
sick.
Yeah, I'm not well. I haven't been
What?
well all week.
What happened?
I don't know. I caught a cold, I think on Monday or something, and I've felt progressively sicker every day this week. Uh, outside of outside of today, where I feel a little bit better than I did yesterday. Though my throat is totally thrashed from 2.5 hours of power bomb casting last night, which was such a bad idea for so many reasons. Oh my god.
Yeah, the thing you should do when you feel deeply ill is scream about sweaty wrestlers for 2.5 hours. I hear it really clears your throat.
Yeah, it clears out the throat, gets all the gunk out of there, really loosens up the mind in a lot of ways, and probably destroys it. I don't know. I did cut back on talking a little bit compared to everyone else last night, but yeah, still, that wasn't enough to stop my throat from wanting to die this morning. So, ugh.
Is this the kind of when you were at the worst, the kind of sick where you can kind of be like, oh, it's like it's a shitty vacation. I can like play a game. I can at least do something. Or is it like the kind of ill where you cannot do anything and you like desperately want it to go away?
Well, it's not the kind of ill where I can't do anything. Wednesday was the closest I got to that, but I was still able to function. The problem is that it's not the kind of sick where I'm having a shitty vacation because I work from home anyway. So if anything, it's just I'm doing what I would normally be doing, but everything hurts and I can't breathe through my nose. So that's not really. Really, there's no benefit whatsoever.
Well, that's unfortunate. Did you get to play any games while you were sick? While
I
you were...
did. I played a couple of games. The first of which I believe you played some of as well. I've played a decent chunk of Child of Light at this point.
Yeah, the
Uh,
new Ubisoft downloadable game that it's using that UB art
yeah,
technology, which
yeah.
theoretically allows them to cram out a higher percentage of high risk, relatively so games in a quick period of time.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
I mean, the thing about the Ubi art, apart from that engine being apparently easy to develop for, is that all the art tends to look pretty fucking fantastic, and that is definitely the standout feature of Child of Light. It looks absolutely fantastic. The art style is really great. I like the character designs a lot. The animation looks amazing. Like, visually, it is resplendent. It is awesome. The rest of the game is where it's starting to fall apart a little bit for me. I think I'm almost to chapter 7, and I think there are only 10 chapters, but I could be wrong about that. Um, so far, the combat has not endeared itself to me terribly well. It's not bad. It's just really easy. I'm playing on the default difficulty, and it feels like, just going through the regular battles, I am obliterating most non-boss competition. And there's a lot of it. I mean, you can skip a decent amount of the combat. There are ways to get around, random enemies in the world, and so you don't have to do that. But then you don't level up as much. You don't gain as many items and stuff. But you also kind of don't need to because it is not a terribly difficult game, and because of that, all the battles start to kind of run together as just this like one long string of you hitting the same attack combinations over and over again, which is not super fun to me. I don't know if you've had the same experience or not, but
No, I have. I'm surprised that you don't have more combat options available to you. That's kind of like that's even though the combat is not particularly difficult.
yeah.
What's becomes apparent and unfortunate, even within the first 2.5 hours, which is about what I've played, is you just don't have a lot of options in combat. There's just not that much going on. The way the action moves at the pace that it moves implies or would have looked to an outside observer like a whole lot of strategy and stuff is happening, but it's really not. You're basically just slowing down the most powerful enemy and then trying to line up your attacks so they interrupt the other enemy's attacks so that they get sent back to the start of the line in terms of being able to execute an action. But
Yeah.
even that stuff I found you kind of don't need to mess with. The game's not challenging enough that you really need to worry too much about the order of actions, and you can kind of just keep mashing on your standard slash attack or tumble, as the case may be for the other character.
Well, you get more characters that have some other different attacks. Like there's one guy who has all elemental attacks, so he has different types of things that will play into the different weaknesses of various enemies. There's another one who is I won't spoil it, but there's another girl character you pick up who has some like the ability to speed up your team and slow down other enemies. I've heard that the combat is significantly more challenging on expert level, as it should be. So I may try that out before I review it, just to kind of get a sense of like how much better that makes the combat. Because more challenging doesn't necessarily make it more fun, but I want to see how it is. Sure. And the story's also not doing a whole hell of a lot for me. The whole rhyming thing is cute, but it starts to wear thin.
I don't even know if it's cute. It's not
cute
well
for like 20 minutes.
It's not well done.
Yeah, it's a little awkward. The character who keeps fucking up the rhymes, like that's funny twice, but they just keep doing that over and over and over again, and it's just like there are times when they rhyme words that don't rhyme, but they think they do. Like they rhyme tragedy with something that did not rhyme with tragedy, and I remember yelling at the screen and then coughing a lot when I did that. It's not that endearing. It's really not.
I mean, it's like you encounter the first major boss I found. He's like, "You cannot stay," and then your character goes, "I'll turn you into clay."
Yeah.
And then cut to boss battle. I wanted to delete the game. It tries way too hard, I think, is the issue there. It's not that it can't have a little fun, with a rhyming scheme, even if it wants to poke fun at itself for not pulling it off all the time, but it just overuses it to the point where, unless you're capable of writing on a level that this makes sense, you shouldn't be doing it, and Child of Light isn't doing it.
Yeah, and I totally get what they're going for. The problem is that it comes off like a bunch of people who looked at some, like storybook style stuff right before they made this game and then just tried to make it like that versus, like a genuine sort of homage to that kind of storybook storytelling. Like it feels forced in a way that is not altogether enjoyable. And it's too bad because, again, I think the characters are really cute. I think the art style is amazing. I think the music's really good.
The music is really good.
The aesthetic qualities of that game are fantastic. It's just the actual game part is not really doing a whole hell of a lot for me.
Yeah, the combat. I do like the premise of the concept, the combat, where it's not just, it is turn-based, but you can interrupt turns and you can modify the order in which attacks are happening, and you often are using a defensive maneuver called defend that has no sort of casting time, so you can immediately nullify an enemy attack, or at least reduce what's going to happen. So I it has a lot of really cool ideas there. It just, they don't really come together. And fundamentally, things like the skill tree, I just don't understand the skill tree and how it is structured.
It looks like a confusing mess. Like that, looking at those skill trees makes no goddamn sense. But I don't know. I mean, it's like
they just randomly unlock things. I don't get a sense. Like usually when you have skill trees, the reason you branch in a direction is because, I would like to tailor my character to be more like this. And in Child of Light, they're just trees. Like you don't feel like you're working towards anything. It wasn't even until I started looking more carefully at the tree itself that I realized, I can unlock some new skills if I start going down this path. But every single path unlocks speed increase or a dodge or MP up 5. Like there is no, hey, I'd like to be a magic user. Hey, I'd like to skew physical. Like the skill trees are just literally a random assortment of upgrades that have no rhyme or reason to them, and does not feel cohesive in terms of trying to develop the character.
At the rate my characters are leveling up, And based on what I, at least anecdotally, have been told how long that game is, which is somewhere between like 10 and 12 hours at most, I'm not surprised it's like that because there's probably just not enough room in that game to really let anyone specialize in anything. It's just about making your characters more powerful to deal with, harder enemies as you come along. There isn't really room for that level of specificity when it comes to the upgrading of your characters, which is unfortunate, but when you're working within a condensed time frame and you just kind of need to get characters better for the game to go along, I guess the way they went about it makes sense.
Yeah. Like the skill trees are basically just another form of leveling up. Like you level up through experience and get a skill point that just allows you to level up again. And
Yeah.
it's a game that's taking mechanics of RPGs but not applying them in a meaningful way. And you might be right that they looked at the length of the game and said we're not going to allow meaningful class specialization, but then why is there a skill tree at all? Just allow just allow skills to unlock naturally through level up progression. But
Yeah.
the fact that there is a skill tree paints a picture that you're going to be able to do more with these characters than the game actually allows, and instead it's actually a giant illusion of customization. And I haven't been messing too much with the stuff you can like the crafting system. I forget what they're crystals that you pick up. They're called something else in the game, but I can't remember what the term is. The game doesn't even explain that system until you go in, and I got an hour and a half in, and I was collecting crystals. So in Child of Light, you collect these crystals, and then you can equip them, and they have various abilities. And I didn't mess with them for the first 90 minutes because I figured, at some point the game's gonna stop and go, hey, here's how this system works. Nope.
Yeah, there's none of that, and it's unfortunate, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to play through it on hard, or at least a good chunk of it on hard, just to kind of see if it becomes more interesting that way. I'm going to finish it on the normal difficulty just to get through it, but it's too bad. Like, I really like the concept of that game a lot. I think that it seemed like everyone involved in it had their heart in the right place. It just doesn't, so far, has not cohered into something that I really want to play or continue playing. Like, if I wasn't planning on writing a review for it probably on Monday at this point, I probably would. Well, I mean, I might get around to finishing it eventually, but I would not be working like today and tomorrow to try and get through it because I just don't care enough. And also, I have Hearthstone sitting right in front of me, and I've now unlocked all the basic cards for all the classes, so now I can just go.
Holy crap!
Yeah, motherfucker. What?
Damn.
What?
That's some time.
I got some cards. I got all these cards. What are you going to do? Are you going to step to my cards?
And we should probably, when you're feeling better next week, we should probably play some cards.
I don't need to be healthy to play Hearthstone, man. I could be trapped in a bubble right now with like just some horrible autoimmune disease. I could still play Hearthstone.
What class have you settled on? A class? Have you built a deck?
I've built custom decks for each of them. I haven't really messed with those custom decks too much to see what works with each one yet. So far, I think, weirdly enough, my Warlock has been the most successful for me, which is a weird, hard class to play because you constantly have to remove your own life to draw more cards. Like, that's your special ability, and all your special cards are either involve damaging yourself, damaging another enemy, or removing cards from your deck, which is not really a super fun thing to have. But I found a way to balance it, and I've been winning pretty regularly as a Warlock, which I did not expect, and so I'm into that one. I'm also pretty into the, there was one other one that I was liking that I suddenly am blanking on. The Paladin. Paladin's good. I like the Paladin because I like throwing out those minions constantly and then boosting those minions to the point where people just can't do anything with it.
Yeah, I can't remember what the class is. There was one I encountered where he threw down like a minion card, and it spawned like 3 other minions.
Yeah.
It was 3 other 1/1 beasts, but he had then immediately played, the orc card that can bring up 1/1, and then played another one that was able to bring those guys up, and suddenly it went from 3 1/1 guys to like 3/3, and all of a sudden, I concede. This match is over.
I got the worst one dealt to me, or dealt against me last night. It was some elite class dragon, which I had not seen before, which was 8/8 on its own, but
Whew.
it spawned 6/1/1 minions.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, and that was it. That was the end of me. I was like, fuck it. I'm not even gonna fight this anymore. I've got like 10 health left. There is no
Uninstall
winning
the
this.
game. That is, oh man. I mean,
Yeah.
that seems to happen sometime in Hearthstone where you're, and maybe, I think that's part of the fun sometimes as the person who gets to deal that card, and then unfortunately sometimes you're on the other end of that. But when you get what appears to be kind of an uber card,
Yeah.
that seems, oh my god, 6 minions. Whew.
Yeah, and that it's like a 9 or a 10 mana play, so that's one you have to save for the end. But once you do, that's it. Like once you get that far into the game and you're dropping that thing, like unless you have like the priest take control of another enemy ability or something, like you're fucked. There's nothing you can do.
Someone in the chat saying, Alex, what would happen if someone came out with a wrestling CCG now that you are into Hearthstone?
Oh man. Okay, now I'm actually starting to build the mechanics of that game in my mind. It's a really dangerous place to go.
When Alex leaves Giant Bomb to form a Kickstarter for his wrestling CCG, you know where that idea came from.
Oh god, yeah, no, dude. I'm already thinking about the abilities for the different cards. I'm thinking about like which minions would come out of certain different. Oh god, this is such a bad idea. Fuck you, whoever came up with that. God damn it. God damn it. I am ruined. I won't be able to sleep until that game is made. Damn you.
There's some folks having a discussion about Child of Light that I want to circle back to for a minute. Where so Maxo Power says, I'm not sure I get the no explanation criticism or praise. Why is the Dark Souls is great because it doesn't explain its upgrading system, while Child of Light is poor because of it? It's not directed at Patrick in particular. I just see it more and more. As someone that has played Dark Souls and played Child of Light, I think they're both poor. I don't think Dark Souls should be praised for its upgrade system and things of that nature, sort of fundamental mechanics just to engage with the game being obtuse. I think those were negatives for Dark Souls, and even though I have soured a bit on Dark Souls 2, I think in terms of explaining just the very basics of how you interact with its upgrade systems and things of that nature, it does a better job of communicating that. That's not what makes Dark Souls Dark Souls. And Child of Light not explaining one of its equipment systems is not a game being less handholdy. That's just a game not explaining a system at all, and that's not good design. Like handholdy is in The Legend of Zelda, where Navi is constantly telling you where to go and not giving you a chance to explore the world and stumble upon things yourself. It's not the games they just outright ignoring a subsystem in the menu system and never explaining why it's there in the first place.
Yeah, I found the Oculi system totally by accident. Like I realized I was collecting.
There you go.
Yeah, I didn't realize why I was collecting all those gems for a long time, and then I just found it in the menu. I was like, oh, well, I can combine these things and make them into things. And then I started assigning them, and it's like the bonuses you get for those are fine, but you could probably get away with not really ever using that system to begin with. It feels like an idea they implemented, wanted to make better, ran out of time to do anything significant with, and just left it the way it was. It just doesn't feel like a fully fleshed out system. It just feels like something that's there because it can be, and it's something for you to collect. And I don't know, like it didn't, like at this point I feel like I could go through the rest of the game never crafting another one of those things and I'd be A-okay.
Yeah, and you could probably never interact with the skill tree and be A-okay.
No, I mean you need to do those because those upgrades come in handy in later battles. Like you need
sure. But I mean, it just sort of generally speaking, it feels a bit slapdash. It feels like, hey, we want to make Child of Light a JRPG. What do we put in this game? This, without really understanding or creating systems that are particularly meaningful. It's more. Yeah. It feels kind of checkbox design in order for it to fit the form of a JRPG without understanding why those games, the good ones, have systems like that in order to give the player more options tactically or to customize their style of play.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my feeling on Child of Light right now. Is kind of lukewarm. I'll try and have I will try and have a review of that for Monday. I was going to try for today, but I still need to edit the Power Bombcast and play through the rest of that game, which I think is at least a few more hours. It's okay. I think for $15, if you like the art style and you like the aesthetics of it, I think that there's some worthwhile stuff in there. It's just I'm in a way I'm kind of glad it's a short game because I don't think I would want to play a really long version of that game myself.
No, no, and on some level, I want to support this game.
Yeah, like conceptually, I'm behind what they're trying to do.
But even just as a corporate initiative,
Yeah.
as gross as that sounds as it comes out of my mouth, the idea that Ubisoft is going to give their team some latitude to be a little weird, to the fact that Child of Light is in a lot of ways a flawed or a failed game. I'm glad it exists because it does look beautiful, and to see, look at some of the complaints we're having about a game like Watch Dogs, a game not living up to maybe its potential given its premise. Well, it's like, okay, if Ubisoft is going to go and do that, but also do Child of Light, that's give a little, take a little.
And it's a $15 game, It's not like a huge investment of time or money. It's just something that is, a cool little curio type thing, and I think there's value in that. I just, maybe Child of Light 2 will be better if there is a Child of Light 2. Let's hope. I don't know. What else did you play, Patrick, besides Hearthstone, which I assume you played a lot of?
Yeah, well, I played less of it this week, more that I was explaining the game to my wife. She has started actually getting into it, she won her first match against a real player, which definitely was not the case for me. So maybe very quickly she's going to overtake me, which wouldn't take a whole lot. Would not take a whole lot in order to be better than me at Child of Light. Or no, Hearthstone. We talked too much about Child of Light.
Yeah.
And so I started playing Hitman GO because Hearthstone, the servers were down earlier this week when my wife was going through the tutorial, and then we were going to face off against each other, but then I tried to log into the game, and it was like, hey, you'll have a table in less than a month, which I kind of love the fact that the game even is able to spit that out as a potential value, which is that you will have a table in less than a month. Like, somehow they have conceived of a world where the game is popular enough that you might have your iPad on for a month before getting a table. So while I was waiting for the servers to come back online, I decided to download Hitman GO because I've been hearing some really good things about it. I couldn't really get into Absolution, the last Hitman game, but I love me some Hitman, and I want to support, kind of like Child of Light, just sort of weird efforts by companies to do different things with either established franchises or new ones. And have you seen a lot of Hitman GO? Have you seen anything about what it is?
So I haven't played it, but I've watched a decent amount of other people playing that game, and it, like, aesthetically, visually, it looks like I love the style of it, like the stripped down sort of board game style presentation of that game is really rad, and mechanically it looked really interesting. Like, it seems like they sort of obscure a little bit of the more violent aspects of Hitman for the sake of making something that's a little bit more, adorably murderous. But it seems like talk about the strategy a little bit, because I don't really necessarily understand how it plays.
So yeah, I mean, it really does feel like it's an abstracted take on Hitman, and yes, the game doesn't have a lot of explicit violence because, and even Hitman, that series in general, doesn't sort of relish and indulge in a headshot or kills. Like, there is violence in it, and you are playing an assassin. But, when things occur, it's not like the game cuts to a slow-mo head being ripped off sort of thing.
No.
Oftentimes in Hitman, you don't even see the violence that you've set up. It occurs off-screen on a different part of the map because you've, set something in motion. And
yeah, it's mousetrap style murder versus you just getting in there and making the guts happen.
Yeah, oftentimes in Hitman, you're walking up to a dude and strangling him and throwing him in, a garbage heap. So there's violence, but it is not indulgent violence in the way a lot of other video games are. And So Hitman Go, yeah, you have this board game set up, and you can move one turn at a time. You're dragging, little Agent 47 from one square to the next, and when you move, everything else on the board moves as well. So it's not just, the game, takes the idea of AI routines, which is integral to how you plan out anything in the Hitman games on a traditional level, where you're spending a lot of your time when you enter a world just figuring out, okay, what is the AI doing? Where are they going? How can I interrupt that pattern? And Hitman Go is the exact same way. It's just sort of very simplified, whereas a mission in Hitman, can take you an hour plus in order to pull off exactly what you're trying to do. Each of these little sections of Hitman Go, are over in, about a minute once you've figured out exactly what's going on. And it's really satisfying, like to drag your little character and then get him around the corner to participate in an assassination, which really is just Agent 47 slides into the character and they get knocked off the board. So it's like, the game is still violent, like you're still being sent out to kill these people, and Ave Maria is going to play, but it's not, you don't actually see Agent 47 pick up a gun or, have some, what do you call it, the thing where you like wrap it around their throat and you strangle them, like the rope.
Oh, you mean like a strangle wire?
Yeah, there's like a term for that, isn't there?
I don't know. I call it a strangle wire or a choke rope. That's all I got.
Those are good. I don't like the term choke rope. That's not. Yeah. I don't like anything about that phrase.
You want to come over, see my choke rope?
So
go on.
What I love about Hitman Go, other than the fact that it's an extremely satisfying game, it's a very enjoyable game, is that I hope Square Enix looks at two of its recent attempts to create mobile versions of its bigger budget franchises. So you have Deus Ex: The Fall, which is a mobile take on Deus Ex: Human Revolution that tries to imitate systems-wise, gameplay-wise, Deus Ex: Human Revolution. And that's not a game that's very fun to play on a tablet. Even though they just put out a PC version, it feels like a mobile game.
Yeah.
And Hitman Go does not feel that way. It doesn't, whereas I'm using mobile game as a pejorative to talk about Deus Ex: The Fall, with Hitman Go, it just feels like they looked at Hitman, said, how can we create a new game that embodies the spirit of Hitman, what people enjoy about playing Hitman, and make it work in the context of a tablet or a phone?
Yeah.
And they nailed it. Like, it feels like a proper Hitman game. It feels like it should be called Hitman. And they probably call it Hitman because they have an existing franchise, like they want to leverage the name. But I don't, I wouldn't say that it feels cheap. It feels executed on as though they thought through what would Hitman feel like in a simplified form, and that is totally Hitman Go, and they knocked it out of the park.
That sounds really good. I've been meaning to download that for a while. I probably will, based on your enjoyment of it. I like Hitman, and the concept for this always seemed really good. Also, there are people in the chat saying piano wire is one thing. Also, Garrett or Garrote, Garotte, is I guess the type of weapon that it is generally considered. I don't know what that term means, but I don't know.
Choke rope.
I'm also a giant idiot, so that makes sense. Yeah, choke rope. Fuck it. Hashtag choke rope. That's what's happening right now. Yeah.
So that's what I played. I played
cool.
Played Hitman Go, played Hearthstone, played Child of Light. Katie's gonna be out of town next week, so I'll probably start playing Dark Souls 2 PC next week, which I'm interested in exploring, seeing that game awful pretty like, and I'll probably stream some of that fun. I'm not sure if I'm going to play through the entire game a second time, but I do want to play it and see what that PC version is like. There's some news this morning, Alex Navarro. They Activision, surprising turn of events. They're making another Call of Duty game.
What? Shut the front door.
Yeah, I know. Who knew?
Does it have guns?
I think so.
Does it take place in some sort of like modern but maybe slightly futuristic theater of warfare?
Yes. And it has Kevin Spacey.
If I had a hat right now, it would have just like flown off my head. like with a little like woo kind of sound effect behind it.
Yeah, so Call of Duty Advanced Warfare.
Not Advanced War Fighter. Let's be fair about it. It's not GRAW. This is a different thing. Advanced Warfare and Advanced Warfighter, two totally different things.
You're right.
Both have drones.
No brand confusion whatsoever.
None. Whatever. Nobody remembers GRAW at this point. Call of Duty is the big thing. They can do whatever they want.
And it's called, yeah, it's from Sledgehammer, which they were supposed to have put out a game earlier than this, but they got called in to try and salvage Modern Warfare 3 when Infinity Ward went through, let's call it a transitionary period, and needed some help in order to make sure that game got out the front door, to put it in a way Alex might understand. And yeah, you watch the trailer?
I did. I actually just put it up on the site right before we did the show.
It looks like a Call of Duty game.
Let's talk about digital Kevin Spacey for a second, because that is some digital-ass Kevin Spacey in that game.
It looks weird. These, if games are going to try and ape, not just the voice of, not just use the voice of Kevin Spacey, but also incorporate Kevin Spacey as though he is acting in this game.
Yeah.
And they got to go full on with that motion capture stuff, because as the fidelity of everything increases, it looks super weird for it to not just look like Kevin Spacey and getting all the nuance in his facial expressions. It looks stiff and odd and robotic in a way that, oddly enough, prevents me from buying into the idea that Kevin Spacey is in this video game.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious example of that is Beyond, which, for all its failings as a game, the one thing it did really, really well was the motion capture acting stuff. Like, the characters in that game moved in a fairly believable way. Occasionally the Uncanny Valley thing would shine through, but for the most part, like, they did a lot with the faces and the animations to make it feel like these are digital actors versus just, like, hand-animated computer people that sort of look like the actors you remember. And, I mean, I don't know. They didn't show enough of Kevin Spacey necessarily to really get a great sense of what they did and did not do with that character. The face looks fine. I immediately recognized it as Kevin Spacey, so there is that. And I don't know, I kind of love the fact that they got Kevin Spacey to be in a Call of Duty game. I mean, I guess, whatever. He's doing, Netflix TV at this point. He's kind of doing whatever he feels like. I'm sure they paid him a buttload of money for that. Maybe he'll make a really interesting villain. Kevin Spacey usually makes a pretty good villain. He was the best part of Superman Returns by, like, millions of miles. So he can play that kind of shitty, scumbag character. Maybe that'll be interesting. I don't know. I don't know if the rest of the game around it is gonna be. They're blowing up the Golden Gate Bridge again. That's great. Not like we haven't done that a million fucking times before, but sure, why not? Let's do it again.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on a new Call of Duty game. I feel like any extended discussion about a new Call of Duty game is just going to me sighing and sort of shrugging my shoulders. It's just, those games are not for me. I do not begrudge anyone that continues to enjoy them. I wish they took bigger risks in the gameplay, given that, they have this huge platform to try interesting things. They have enormous budgets. But also, well, no, this isn't even, they couldn't even use this as an excuse anymore. Before you could say, well, they had to put these games out so quickly that they can't really take any big risks. And no, like, they get a full 3 years to make these games. And the Sledgehammer game is the first one where they're getting a full 3-year cycle to spend time making these games. And yeah, I will say it looks very pretty.
Yeah.
It looks very nice. And I thought it was interesting that the trailer opens with captured on an Xbox One. That reeks of Microsoft sewing up the same marketing deal they've had with Activision in the past, where it is shown on Xbox, the DLC comes first on Xbox, and obviously, if it's in Microsoft's interest to try and combat the narrative that the PS4 is more powerful by having impressive new games shown as though they are running on an Xbox One.
Yeah, and, we can talk all we want about how pretty it looks and whatever. Those games live and die by their multiplayer, so until people actually get hands-on with that stuff, like, we don't know anything. The campaign is always just 6 hours of explodey everything, to varying degrees of entertainment, but it's ultimately, they're multiplayer games. That's what people want, and they're not going to show any of that for a while. So, Right now, all we know is digital Kevin Spacey and the Golden Gate Bridge is blowing up. And that's all right. That's a starting point. That's fine. Whatever. At least they have caught my interest in a way that Ghost certainly never did. I'll give them that.
Tagaris435 says, I don't get why they still lead with the single player for their big reveals when most people care about the multiplayer.
Multiplayer's probably not in a showable state yet.
There's probably that. Also, single player makes for really good trailers.
Yeah.
It makes for impressive marketing. If nothing else, you could imagine that the whole reason they make that single player mode is because it looks really damn cool to show off.
Yeah.
Whereas showing a trailer of multiplayer looks really boring.
Yeah.
It's just not as nearly as interesting. Yes, watching the Golden Gate Bridge shatter for the millionth time, but now slightly prettier, or more impressive, I guess. It's the same old thing, but it looks good. It looks cinematic. It lends itself well to advertising. Multiplayer does not do that. Titanfall, managed to try and pull that off, and maybe they show, a way that does work. But I think Call of Duty, relishes in the spectacle that its single player shows off. And I wouldn't be surprised if, statistically speaking, more people play that single player than we probably think, as big as the multiplayer actually is.
I remember this. I don't know the exact numbers, and I can't remember where this came from, but I remember there being some statistical thing that said that, like, between Battlefield and Call of Duty, the percentage of people who never touch the single player is kind of crazy high. Like, it's not 50% or anything like that, but it was surprisingly high number of people that just never touched it, which is, I don't know. I mean, I guess not surprising that they still continue to make those campaigns, but it probably also explains why those campaigns have gotten a lot shorter and a lot less, involved as the years have gone on. At a certain point, they're just tech demos for the engine more than anything else.
Yeah, so there's another Call of Duty game. It's coming out. I didn't play the last one. Did you play the last one?
No, the last Call of Duty I actually played the whole way through and played a bunch of the multiplayer of. I think it was like Modern Warfare 1. So.
Oh, okay. So you've taken a long break.
Yeah, I mean, I played some multiplayer in some of those other games, but I haven't really played through one of those campaigns or really gotten involved in a Call of Duty thing in years. So.
Yeah, I fully skipped the last one because Ghost was basically universally panned as even being interesting on as a curiosity.
Yeah.
But maybe the fact that Advanced Warfare is coming out on next gen systems, maybe it'll be worth it just for the next gen spectacle of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There just seemed like there were better ways to spend 6 hours than playing through a rote single player that I will just complain about.
I think that's fair. There's a more interesting piece of news that I'd like to talk about, which you wrote about this week. Let's talk about how Zenimax is apparently trying to claim ownership of everything John Carmack has ever done since they own the company he used to work for. What's going on with that situation?
So the Wall Street Journal reported earlier this week that John Carmack, who as of last summer joined Oculus formally, but was a well-known VR aficionado, had built some of his own homemade prototypes, and Zenimax is arguing that Oculus could not have produced the prototype that has gotten them so much attention, that led to the sale to Facebook, or would have led to the sale to someone else, most likely, without John Carmack's involvement. And that when John Carmack left to go to Oculus formally, he took proprietary material that was built within ZeniMax's walls to Oculus, and has led to Oculus having a several $billion sale to Facebook. And if you read the particulars of the Wall Street Journal report, they mentioned that Oculus has tried to resolve this with ZeniMax in the past. They offered an equity stake in Oculus as a company. They've offered probably other forms of that deal, but ZeniMax has never been satisfied with that. And now conveniently with a sale to Facebook, ZeniMax, they want to. It doesn't seem like they want to take the tech back. They just want some of that sweet, sweet cash.
They just want a piece of it because he was writing code or at least doing some stuff that is being sort of parlayed into this the current Oculus tech while he was working at Zenimax, which I guess I get. I mean, as a corporate entity, if one of your former employees, one of your most cherished and well-known employees jumped ship to another company where he presumably was doing some work for that company while they were still working for you. Yeah, if I was a corporate lawyer, I'd be like, fuck yes, we should be getting money from this. That doesn't necessarily mean they actually should be getting that, or that this is in any way a legitimate lawsuit, but I can totally understand their reasoning as a corporation. As a corporation, your job is to get that money wherever you can, and this is a situation where it seems like they are trying to get some of that money.
Yeah, so like the timeline is that like long before Carmack got involved formerly at Oculus, Palmer Luckey, who is the founder of Oculus, sent John Carmack a prototype, and part of the prototypes that Carmack himself was showing, the ones he sort of home built, was based on that Oculus technology, and then that stuff went back to Palmer Luckey and informed the prototype that was created. So here's a statement from Zenimax who says, the proprietary technology and know-how Mr. Carmack developed when he was a Zenimax employee and used by Oculus are owned by Zenimax. Well before the Facebook transaction was announced, Mr. Luckey acknowledged in writing Zenimax's legal ownership of this intellectual property. It was further agreed that Mr. Luckey would not disclose this technology to third persons without approval. Oculus has used and exploited Zenimax's technology and intellectual property without authorization, compensation, or credit to Zenimax. Zenimax and Oculus previously attempted to reach an agreement whereby Zenimax would be compensated for its intellectual property through equity ownership in Oculus, but were unable to reach a satisfactory resolution. Zenimax believes it is necessary to address these matters now and will take the necessary action to protect its interests.
Yeah.
Carmack put out a tweet that essentially functioned as his official comment yesterday, in which he wrote, "No work I've ever done has been patented. Zenimax owns the code that I wrote, but they don't own VR." Which he kind of in some ways seems to be saying that Zenimax might have a point.
Yeah.
I feel like he is sort of acknowledging that, he may have done some work that maybe Zenimax would, and obviously if Oculus was engaging with active negotiations with Zenimax to offer equity, on some level Oculus has already admitted culpability in this and wanting to bury this part of the story so they can move on and continue to allow Oculus to try and become what it's striving for. But between Carmack's tweet and Zenimax saying they were in active negotiations seems to suggest there is some smoke to this fire, and how it gets resolved. It doesn't seem to be that Zenimax has an active interest in saying they want to take over VR and make their own virtual reality device, but whatever equity was being offered was not enough that they felt adequately covered the amount of contributions Carmack had to the early development of the Oculus prototype.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. In the end, this is going to probably just end with some kind of settlement where they get a decent chunk of money, maybe some, ongoing profits from the whole thing. But regardless, John Carmack still no longer works at id. He is now at Oculus. Them getting some money does not necessarily, fix the greater thing, which is that they've been kind of bleeding talent from that studio for a while, and Carmack leaving was still like a huge blow to them. So they'll get some money out of it, and that's great. But Carmack is still gone, and he's still working at Oculus, and all this does is just kind of make them look a little bit bitter in the end. But if they get paid, I guess maybe that's worthwhile.
Let's see. So there's some people in the chat pointing out some other tweets from Carmack. He writes, "Oculus uses 0 lines of code that I wrote while under contract to Zenimax."
Well, that's pretty sick. Yeah.
So pointing out that, but that doesn't mean that lines of code that he wrote weren't used in the development, and those codes just came out. I mean, it seems like there's something to this.
It could be.
Obviously, I haven't looked at. I don't know Carmack's. Whatever he signed, I don't know exactly. I don't know a lot of the particulars. Obviously, these companies are going to be shouting because neither wants to give any ground. But on the surface, it does seem like Zenimax may have a point, and it's going to get settled. Facebook has got that Facebook money. They clearly have a vested interest in the future of Oculus, so I don't think this is going to prove to be anything more than a bump in the road. But it does, it is an interesting wrinkle in the saga that is, Oculus making its transition to the mainstream.
Yeah. In other news, Disney Infinity 2.0 has been announced.
Yeah.
It will be coming this September. I apparently that was nailed down on some kind of web stream over the last day or so, and it will be coming to Xbox One and PS4, and it will feature characters from the Marvel Universe. At the big press conference where there was not nearly enough John Vignacchi for my taste, if I'm being completely honest here. They showed off the Avengers, they showed off Loki, they showed off MODOK, which is surprising for so many reasons. And they did a little teaser for Spider-Man. All those characters coming to Disney Infinity. Patrick, you don't actually play that game, do you?
No. John Vignacchi gave me a set, but it's kind of just sitting in a bag.
I've tried it. It's okay. Like, it's an alright game for being, a Toys to Life type game. The toy box stuff is neat, but the actual game parts are not super interesting to me. It sounds like some of the changes they're making for the 2.0, where there's they're differentiating the characters more in terms of their abilities. They're adding some stuff to the gameplay that I think will probably make it more interesting. It sounds like the toy box mode is getting a pretty decent revamp. So, I like those changes, and that will probably get me to at least try it again. But I played some of it and was like, okay, this is cool, and then I never touched it again, which I feel sort of bad about.
Well, the game part does not seem like the strong suit of the Infinity games. It's how much you want to engage with the collection aspect, right. And I don't want to engage with the collection aspect at all. I don't want to be too harsh in my assessment of it, but I think it is a giant waste of time and money. I do not see the appeal of spending that much money on a proprietary piece of software where you can't do much else with these little figures, but that's just me. I'd probably be different if I had kids.
Yeah.
I definitely see the appeal there, but as someone that doesn't have that hook, I have zero interest in spending hundreds of dollars on little figures that interact with a game that just doesn't seem that great.
I think I would be way more into it if I was still into figure collecting and I was also still into Disney. I like, Monsters Inc. and I like, some of the, the Incredibles, but, I don't need to own figurines of that stuff. That doesn't really hold much appeal for me anymore. If I was, 11 or 12, or even, a little bit younger than that, this would be the greatest fucking thing that ever existed.
Totally.
But at the same time, I would still be a little bit disappointed by the figures. They're cool looking, but they're non-articulated in any way, and that was something that always drove me crazy as a little kid, was figures that don't move at all or do anything other than just kind of sit there. I never liked entirely stationary figures, and I'm sure that maybe kids now just don't give a shit about that. I don't know, but that used to drive me absolutely nuts as a kid if I got a figure that didn't move. That ruined it all for me, and I wish the figures were better. That's what it boils down to on Skylanders, on Infinity, whatever else.
Yeah, and I think that's a totally valid critique. If that they don't, not that you're going to sit around and necessarily play with these figures, but you could do more with them. You could set them up. You can pose them. They're at least a little more interesting. If
I was a kid, I would be rip shit about it because I would want to play with those things, but I would hate it. I'm not going to play with any figures now because I'm 32 goddamn years old, and if I start doing that, please put me in a fucking hospital until I'm cured of that shit.
But there is, I've a couple of times been at a friend's place in Chicago, and there's a cousin that comes over, and they have a couple of kids, and they are obsessed with Skylanders, and it is magical to watch how into they are this idea of just putting this figure down, watching it appear on the screen, and then grabbing the controller and running them around. There is something amazingly cool about that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's cool beyond that. These games, it seems like the Skylanders games are probably better games than the Infinity series, whereas the Infinity series has the cooler set of characters because you actually have nostalgia or feelings towards a lot of these different characters from different worlds from the Disney universe, but it's not as good of a game, and so maybe there's a world where these combined together, and there's one that grabs me, but I doubt it. I'm not a collection guy to begin with.
Yeah.
I purge stuff on a regular basis. I keep the things that I own pretty slim, and so these games just sort of fundamentally have no appeal to me whatsoever.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I wrote an editorial about how cool I thought the concept was when they announced Infinity, and I still think the concept is great for kids and something that I would have certainly loved when I was younger. I like the idea of what they talked about as far as the changes to the game. It sounds like it will be more of a game now, which is good. But yeah, I mean, obviously this is past my point of super interest in this kind of thing. But I also wasn't writing about games when I was 10, so wouldn't have done anyone any good anyway.
I was pretty close.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, you're only 16 now, so which I still don't understand how you got married with that. I don't know how you got around that law, but
I do. So there's some discussion in the chat happening about a game that I have some deep nostalgia for. It's the Monster Hunters, or Monster Rancher series.
Oh, Monster Rancher, yeah.
Which, man, I was so into the first couple Monster Rancher games. So if people aren't familiar, the Monster Rancher games were sort of Pokemon. Like games from Tecmo, in which you collected monsters and fought them in an arena and things of that nature. But the hook was you popped open the PlayStation, put in an audio CD, and audio CDs would generate monsters in your game. So this is at a time when most kids or adults had dozens, if not hundreds, of CDs because it was just the way you listened to music. And putting in Weezer or Aerosmith or whatever, and getting a monster to come out of it, that was so damn cool. I loved that hook so much, even if I was less into the game as much as I was into putting audio CDs, having friends bring over stacks of audio CDs, and just seeing what came out of it.
That, to me, is the greatest tragedy of the death of physical media, which is to say that it's not really that much of a tragedy that physical media is dying. But I loved that aspect. I loved the whole, custom levels depending on what CD you put in for Vib Ribbon. Like, that was the kind of shit I was way into years and years ago when CDs mattered. I could put in my dad's fucking, shitty old Eric Clapton records and get, worthwhile, things out of this game. I thought that was pretty great. But no one has CDs anymore. What's the equivalent? Are you just feeding MP3s into the game and then it just somehow makes something off of that? No, not going to happen.
I mean, well, you see some music games that try to do that. What's the PC game that it'll read your music library?
Audio Surf.
Yeah.
But you're actually playing those songs that you feed in there. You're not getting weird monsters or Vib Ribbon levels out of the MP3s that you're tossing in there.
Yeah, man. Monster Rancher. What a good game.
Yeah, it was an okay game, but it was a great concept.
I wonder if that even works on an emulator. I wonder if it's able to read CDs and pull that off, or if that's something you could only strictly do on. Not that this PC I'm on has a disk drive. I've been meaning to buy one for the couple of games that I have that I would need to install disk stuff, but I wonder if that would work on an emulator.
Yeah.
You see that? Sounds like No One Lives Forever is going to rise from the dead.
Yeah. What is up with that? It's just registering of trademarks, right?
So, yeah, that trademark has been dead for a long time. Fox Interactive owns that the rights to No One Lives Forever, even though that was a Vivendi game that should have theoretically gone to Warner Brothers as a result of various sales and things of that nature. Warner Brothers either didn't pick it up or doesn't care, and the trademark was last listed as being owned by Fox Interactive. But I don't have the company's name in front of me, but it's the company that brought back System Shock 2, basically, that found a way to unearth that, make that available on Steam and other services. They just recently filed a bunch of trademarks, or updated trademarks, for No One Lives Forever, and it seems like that is going to come back. They released a statement to Polygon that said, "We would love to see the No One Lives Forever franchise come back in a form that people could play, because we love those games," or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that just seems like a, don't look at us, so that they can properly announce something in the near future. But it does seem like No One Lives Forever is coming back. I don't remember those games very well, but I know they have extraordinarily devoted followers, and it was back at the Night Dive Studios, as the chat points out, is the studio responsible for this. It is a game, or at least a series, that I would love to play because I've heard nothing but good things, and I don't remember them at all.
Yeah, I have very little experience with No One Lives Forever. I remember watching other people play those games. Go, oh, that looks like fun, and I just never got into it. But I realized that a lot of people have very, very positive memories of that series. So now this could just as easily be them just re-releasing the old games, right?
Oh, no, that's what this is going to be. Yeah, please do
Yeah.
not misinterpret. This is not a new No One Lives Forever game.
Yeah.
It will be No One Lives Forever 1 and 2 coming out on good old games and Steam and things like
Right.
that, but and made to work on modern hardware. But that is still
That's a start.
there's nowhere for people to play these games. And while the PC is better than consoles at allowing players to play archived material, old games, there still needs to be work done when trademarks lapse, and there is no easy way to purchase them. It's what leads people to you can't blame them for torrenting the game because there's no easy way to buy the game or have it run on modern hardware. So it seems like we're going to get that for No One Lives Forever, and that just makes me think of Shogo, which I'm sure that game is not any good, but man, I liked me some Shogo at the time.
I don't even remember Shogo, to be honest.
That was
with you.
Monolith's robot game.
Oh, yeah, I never played that.
Shogo was great.
Yeah.
Or it probably wasn't. It was probably bad, but Shogo was great.
Okay. Well, I'll take your word for that. Anything else in the news? Anything else of interest going on?
Disney Infinity, Call of Duty.
You finished that horrible Blair Witch game, right?
Yeah, I finished it. I think the archive should be up on the site
is.
right
It's
about
up now.
now, actually. Yeah, I finished that horrible Blair Witch game. I made another terrible decision. I texted you about it earlier this week.
Yeah, you did.
excited
So
about
let's
it.
talk about this for a second, okay? Because I'm a little upset with you. I'm going to be completely honest. We had a talk.
We
where
did.
We were talking about old TV, and somehow Prison Break came into the conversation, which
Yeah.
I don't remember. You were talking about how much you wanted to go back and watch the Prison Break you had not watched, which I guess was the later seasons.
No, I have seen the conclusion of Prison Break, the television show.
Oh, it was the movie, right?
Put out a direct-to-DVD film after the fact. Prison Break, the final break.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
you
a
went,
great name.
and so you went, and you paid money for the Prison Break movie. Now, Patrick, we
To be clear,
established.
let's be clear. I paid $1.05.
Yeah,
I had a gift card. I could have spent it on many other things that were more worthwhile and
Yeah.
enriching to my life. But I bought Prison Break, the final break on a DVD.
Now, Patrick, we've established before that even you agree that most of Prison Break was pretty fucking awful, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, naturally, the correct thing to do when presented with this understanding
Uh-huh.
is to buy more fucking Prison Break, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to know how
These are the
I
sorts of things where, like you spend that money, you press that button to buy the fucking Prison Break movie,
Uh-huh.
and a government robot shows up and just says you can't use money anymore. It just takes all your fucking money. That's it. That's the end. You've lost this responsibility.
but I have to know how it ends. So I oh no. Well, I guess let's just talk about Prison Break. Let's talk about our favorite moments in Prison Break. What's your favorite moment in Prison Break? Call in. Let me know what your favorite moment in Prison Break is. We'll chat through the seasons. We'll really just talk it through. We'll reminisce. So this all started because of 24. I was hey Alex.
No, keep talking.
So 24 comes back next week, which is also a show that got real bad, real bad, yet kept going for a long time. But now 24 is returning, and that got me, amongst a series of beers, talking to a friend of mine who very much loves 24 as well, and very much enjoyed early Prison Break as much as I did, and he said, "Hey, like, you ever watch that direct-to-DVD movie?" And I said, "No." And then I said, "I've probably had enough to drink that I should buy it." And then I did. It's a good story.
It's a great story. It's fantastic. Totally justifies that horribly stupid purchase. I look forward to hearing back. You know what? I can't wait to have you come back on this show and explain how that movie redeemed all of Prison Break and somehow made it good and therefore made that purchase worthwhile, and how you are bettered as a person knowing how Prison Break ends.
What if I can't guarantee any of these things?
Well, then maybe you made a mistake.
Prison Break: The Final Break. Looking at it, I didn't buy the Blu-ray. I don't know if I bought the Blu-ray. I can't tell.
You don't know what you bought. You don't know what you're doing.
Not 100% sure. Special features, none.
This is the part where the drone crashes through the fucking window and takes all your money. That's it.
The federal government can't touch Michael Scofield, so they're going after the woman he loves. When Sarah is arrested for murder, only Michael can rescue her and their unborn child from an impenetrable women's prison. With a price on Sarah's head and time running out, Michael must rely on his deadliest enemies to help attempt the most daring breakout ever. 4 stars. This is truly for the fans, says Erolf. We're just going to start reading Amazon instant reviews.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's
keep tumbling down this Prison Break hole for as long as humanly possible.
What are you going to do this weekend? Other than catch up.
I'm going to watch the Prison Break, obviously.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. What am I going to do this weekend? I'm finally moving a bunch of crap into storage this weekend, so I will have a cleaner apartment, which is nice. Of course, hopefully I will be healthy enough to actually move things tomorrow, but we'll see. Other than that, I'm going to finish Child of Light. I am going to play a lot more Hearthstone, almost assuredly. And that's probably about it. What do you got?
I'm probably going to play the more Child of Light. The fact that you have revealed it is like 10 hours long is that's probably the last thing I wanted to hear about Child of Light, was that, you know, I'm only 1/5 through it. So I'll probably keep playing it, though. I'll probably finish it. Or at least get through a more significant chunk. But as we pointed out, I have trouble stopping things, so I might as well just, instead of pretending I'm not going to finish Child of Light, I'm going to finish Child of Light.
Okay, that's good.
And I will probably play a lot of Hearthstone as well. I've also had an itch. Maybe it's because I'm just playing Hearthstone. I never played Diablo 3. And people seem to like that game. I like Diablo games. So I'm considering playing Diablo.
I think I'm going to wait for the PS4 version of that, because that'll have whatever the expansion content is too.
Yep.
And I feel like that is I will probably play that, more likely to play that on my PS4 than I am on my PC. So I will play that eventually as well. I'm curious about it. I was reminded also that Extreme Rules, WWE Extreme Rules, is on this weekend, which I'm actually going to watch for the first time forever because I have the WWE Network now and I can watch all their shitty pay-per-views as well as WrestleMania now. So I'm totally going to do that somewhere in between also watching Game of Thrones. And also look out for a new Power Bombcast later today, which I will edit together whenever the hell Jeff sends me the audio file for this and I can actually edit it. But that will be today, so look out for that.
Alex, are you going to go see the new Spider-Man, says Hammond of Texas?
I don't know. I
haven't seen the first one.
No, I didn't watch the original Amazing Spider-Man. And I was kind of done with Spider-Man by the time 3 rolled around for obvious reasons. Amazing Spider-Man sounded like it was just like a perfectly safe but not terribly remarkable reboot. 2 sounds like it gets into some weird Batman Forever territory with the number of villains it throws at you and just the sheer campiness of it, which almost sounds appealing, but not necessarily enough to get me to go pay theater prices for it. So I'll probably watch that later on.
Yeah, maybe I will celebrate the release of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 by finally paying $5 on iTunes to watch The Amazing Spider-Man 1. Even though there were several years in between Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man, like the idea of another origin story could not have been less appealing. It was, so transparently a cash grab to keep the rights from reverting back to Marvel, and the entire way they talk about expanding this universe to try and ape what Marvel is doing, despite the fact they're doing it with a Marvel character. All of it is just so transparently gross and exploitative. The only thing that makes me sort of excited is that, Drew Goddard is writing and directing Sinister Six, and
Yeah.
I really like. I have
You
that.
hear
right?
about the stinger scene for that movie? So there is like a post-credit sequence, but the only way you can watch it is if you use the Shazam app while the credits are rolling, and it recognizes that the credits of Spider-Man 2 are rolling, and then it will play that scene on your phone, because fuck you. That's why.
Yeah, that's really good.
Transmedia, motherfuckers!
All right, we're shutting this down. I feel like I'm gonna get sick through you. I don't think that's possible on the internet, but I think you're making a valid case.
I'll find a way.
So that's Bombin the Am with Scoops and the Wolf. Alex, I will, if you're still around, I'll talk to you on Monday.
Oh.